They work in part.
Get it on the right.
So much shit.
Oh, yeah.
Setting up your meeting.
You see,
Yes. Yep.
What's the dark side?
It really bothers me.
It's last cycle. Yeah, I guess. And someone's got. Yeah. Yeah, they've got a couple.
Thanks.
the informal hearing subcommittee of the Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission to order. We'll take the roll first to see who's here. If anybody's out in the hallway, just be sure to try to listen for your name. Anthony Musto.
Yes, sir.
Willis Manley.
Yes, sir.
Stephen Wilson. Stephen Wilson. Roy Shepard. James Benton. James Benton. Philip Kemper. Here. Bill Randolph. Bill Randolph.
Mr. Randolph has submitted a agreed order to surrender his certification. Okay, that just came yesterday.
Takes care of that one. Brian Ray. Brian Ray. Sheldon Smith. Michael Gary. Is Gary. Clint Cooper. Mackenzie Cross. Mackenzie Cross. Ronald Davis. Ronald Davis. Chad Garland. Chad Garland. Kurt Parsley.
Here, sir.
Justin Ruth.
Here, sir.
Dylan Sandlin.
Here, sir.
Carl Seagroves.
Here, sir.
Alrighty. Right, we have 5 commissioners here. We typically have 3 that vote. Who would like to be the alternates?
The one that traveled with others.
Don't make me do math.
Sounds like it's you, Sheriff.
So, Sheriff Martin, you're gonna be an alternate.
I believe not.
Commissioner Green, alternate. Okay. All right, well, we'll get started today. We have a pretty decent sized docket to get through. We'll start with the Lebanon Police Department and James P. Benton. Mr. Benton was submitted for decertification based on his termination. Would a representative of the Lebanon Police Department please step up to the podium? You would, sir, for the record, identify yourself and tell us what you do with the department, and then commence to telling us why we are here today.
Yes, my name is Justin Sandifer. I'm a detective with the Lebanon Police Department, the Professional Standards Division.
Oh, wait a minute. He was not here. I'm sorry.
Right.
We'll come back to this. We'll do all the ones that weren't here. Sorry. Can't read my own shorthand. All right. Philip Kemper, Medina Police Department. Mr. Kemper was submitted for decertification based on failing to complete in-service training for 2 consecutive years. Chief, if you would, just identify yourself by the record or for the record, by rank and name, and go ahead and present your case about why you should not be up here.
My name is Philip Kemper. I'm currently the interim chief of police at the Medina Police Department. Took that position January this year. I spent most of my career, 20 plus years at the Jackson Police Department, which is what brings me here today. I was placed on paid administrative leave in the Jackson Police Department, December 21st of 2021. And so, according to the policies of the department, I was supposed to be given some charges, some civil service process along with that, but that never occurred. And so October of 2022, I filed a federal lawsuit against the city of Jackson because of not having a due process of getting the charges, of having an opportunity to defend myself against what I did not know. I didn't get those charges until February of this year. So I was on paid administrative leave from the Jackson Police Department from December 21 up until mid-February of this year. So my understanding was being on administrative leave, I could not attend in service. I did not have credentials. I'm a graduate of the FBI NA. Registered to go to an NA conference in 23, but I couldn't attend that because I didn't have active law enforcement credentials. So I did some training, although that training couldn't be submitted because I was on administrative leave. So I've got copies of 2 lawsuits. If you guys would like them, I'd like to submit them to this panel. That lays out all of the
You can pass them around to the commissioners.
One of the reasons I took the position as an interim chief at Medina was to be back in law enforcement, to allow myself the ability to train. So I didn't miss in service because I didn't want to go. I missed in service because I couldn't go.
As far as the in-service statutes and rules are concerned, we could have general counsel just tell the informal subcommittee, remind the informal subcommittee of what the statutes and rules say.
Ashley Ball, the statute says that after 2 consecutive years of missing in-service training or failing to complete all of in-service training, the officer would be automatically decertified. But however, the rules allow for the commission to waive that, to do a waiver in order to keep the certification and not be decertified.
If I could, I would submit that according to Jackson's attorneys throughout this whole process, that they had been submitting waivers to the post commission. At least that's what they had told me.
That's actually how this matter came before the informal subcommittee. Jackson Police Department has submitted in-service waivers on Mr. Kemper's behalf. They submitted one for last year, which came before the commission last month. The commission had questions of the Jackson Police Department. They didn't answer too many of those questions, and the commission wanted to ask Mr. Kemper some questions. And because of the possible disciplinary outcome, the commission voted to send this to an informal subcommittee. So Mr. Kemper could explain what was going on, and whatever you guys want to do as far as approving the waiver, not approving the waiver. If the waiver is not approved, it would put him in that bucket of automatic decert just because it's been more than 2 years. So it's kind of where we're at.
I also state that if it matters, I've gotten 44 hours of training this year since January when I started with Medina Police Department, and I'm registered for a class, a 40-hour strategic planning for law enforcement class that the Academy is teaching in Humboldt next week. I'm also registered for TACP's Chief Executive Leadership course, June and July. So throughout the next few months, I will have well over 3 years worth of hours that are post approved.
Commissioner Green, would he have to appear before the regular commission for the waiver?
Usually the agency comes before the commission and not the officer. But that'd be up to the commission whether or not they want to have him appear.
But he's the interim chief, so he would be the agency asking for his own waiver.
Well, the Jackson Police Department submitted the waiver because he was still technically an employee of the Jackson Police Department when he missed in service for the calendar year 2024.
So Jackson would have to be the one that asked for the waiver.
And they did ask for the waiver, and they did appear last month. And the commission voted to move this to an informal hearing, so that's kind of where we're at.
Probably, I would think, get a legal opinion on that, but I would think the waiver request would have to come back in front of the full commission, unless the informal subcommittee could grant the waiver and then it'd be accepted by the full commission tomorrow.
Yes, so you could either make a recommendation if that was your all's choice for a waiver. And that would be voted on by the commission, or just the waiver go before the commission.
Commissioner Beverly, so you were placed on administrative leave on what charges, or did they advise?
They're in back of one of those, or the second lawsuit.
Would you care, just since we don't have enough copies for everybody, to just explain that to the judge?
I'd have to look at it. I mean, I would submit based on my lawsuits that I disagree with both of them completely and I'm trying to appeal the process. The reason for the second lawsuit was the city didn't follow the city's charter of giving me the option for a civil service appeal within 60 days.
I get that. I guess what led to them putting you on administrative leave? I guess if you can't define the charges, what situation or did
I
they?
could read the charges if you give that back to me, but
Anybody else want to see this? Well,
yeah, basically I filed a whistleblower lawsuit.
okay.
I oversaw the drug fund of the police department seizure process. There was a lieutenant that worked for me that handled those monies. I became aware that she wasn't handling those monies appropriately, contacted the DA's office, who contacted the comptroller's office, who came in and did an audit, found money missing from that process. It was after that I started having disciplinary issues from the Jackson Police Department. Again, they placed me on leave December 21st, but they didn't give me these charges until February of this year.
But they made application for a waiver in the interim.
Correct. Yeah. All the post rules, all the compliance rules were followed to a T. The years that he missed in service, they submitted in-service waiver. They came before the commission and they were approved up until last month for last year's in-service that was missed. It was more of just the commission had questions to what was going on that Jackson didn't really want to get into, probably because of the lawsuit.
So get out here since he's the plaintiff in that. Sounds like you're moving on from Jackson PD.
Just trying to do my job wherever I can.
Commissioner Wright, what plans do you have for getting the mandated in-service done? Are you gonna do it with Gibson County?
Well, like I said, I've done 44 hours of B Academy this year so far, and then the two 40-hour classes I'm registered for now are both post-approved. Again, I'm a member of TACP, a member of the FBI, and there's a number of conferences that I would attend moving forward. It's generally always post-approved.
What about your firearms?
We're having a department in-service this year that I've participated in. My firearms qualification was done earlier this year by the GDI in Medina.
So you've already had that completed?
Yes, this year. As well as the other mandated courses through the B Academy.
I will say that we don't have any other history of Chief Kemper missing any other in-service other than that time that he was out on admin leave in our records.
Commissioner Beverly, again, you weren't under any investigation of criminal issues, were you?
No, sir, never.
That's sometimes that would be a reason why a department would say they don't want to get into it. I wanted that out there that you were not under investigation for that. It seems like they didn't want to get into it because they were served with a lawsuit potentially.
Certainly can't speak for them, but I've never been under any kind of criminal investigation.
We'll make a motion that we forward his final waiver onto the full commission.
Ryan, I'll second that, but we'll just do that and not vote tomorrow. Maybe we have to come back or how?
I believe you can make it, if you wanted to make the motion to grant him a waiver for in-service and then all of this pending the vote tomorrow, the full commission.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to grant him a waiver on that service. Okay,
This Commissioner Graham, a discussion, I'll go ahead and say he did attempt to register for the NA conference that has mandatory post-training in it last year, but because of his ineligibility, wasn't allowed to, so I understand the circumstances. And I can see his registration for the class next week, so, I mean, he's obviously taking steps to do what he needs to do to take care of his in-service.
All right, any further discussion? We have a motion to grant a waiver for in-service. Of course, that's pending the approval of the commission tomorrow. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. See you on Monday.
Just to be clear, do I need to be here tomorrow?
No.
Okay.
No, it's basically like a, just an agenda that they will look at and vote on the decisions that were made today.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anthony Musto, Blount County Sheriff's Office. Mr. Musto was submitted for decertification based on resignation in lieu of termination. Representative from the Blount County Sheriff's Office. And I know we know each other, but if you would, just state your name for the record.
Yes, Josh Blair, Director of Training at Blount County.
Why are we here today?
We're here today on the matter of Mr. Musto. Back in November of 24, Mr. Musto had an unfortunate event at home, was arrested for a domestic assault charge in Knox County. He was placed by us in a non-law enforcement position until we could see what the outcome of that would be. And then in December, Mr. Musto resigned on his own recognizance from the agency, and we were directed by Mr. Bello to place him in the decertification process. Since then, he has been dismissed of all charges, and we are in favor of him maintaining his certification.
What is the pleasure of the commission? Any questions for the representative? Would the commission like to hear from Mr. Musto?
Commissioner Wright, make a motion for no action. Beverly, second.
We have a motion for no action and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Hendersonville Police Department, Willis Manley. Mr. Manley was submitted for decertification based on resigning with disciplinary actions pending. If you would, sir, just identify yourself for the record.
Yes, sir.
And tell us why we are here today.
Yes, sir. I'm Neil Harris. I'm a patrol lieutenant with Hendersonville Police Department. This particular disciplinary action kind of began, we're not aware of it at the time. Officer Manley was serving as a patrol officer on my shift. There was a call in July of 2024 that he responded to where he met a female who happens to be married to a defense attorney who serves in our county. Months later, allegations came forward, complaints from that attorney that resulted in an investigation conducted by myself where it was determined that Officer Manley was engaging in a romantic relationship with that attorney's wife. And when he was initially asked about this by me, he was not initially truthful about that. Ultimately admitted to that relationship. Subsequent to that, that attorney was representing a female involved with a male that Officer Manley had prosecuted in a couple of criminal cases. He had taken reports, at least a report, and was conducting an investigation during the time he was involved in a romantic relationship with that female. That created a serious conflict of interest where he was investigating the husband of the female he was having a relationship with. There were two court hearings, one in December of 2024 and another in January of 2025, where that defense attorney had subpoenaed Officer Manley. And while Officer Manley was on the stand under oath testifying in Judge Hunter's court, he made false statements in response to questions. After the second hearing, I talked to him about those statements, to which his responses revealed that He had knowledge that the statements he had made were not truthful. And then again, in January, they had a second hearing on another motion related to the case where he was questioned further and made further statements on the road that were not true. He was placed on administrative leave and resigned prior to his departmental hearing.
This is Commissioner Woodward. So he has lied under oath on 2 occasions?
Multiple times on 2 occasions.
And not that this really matters, but was it material to the issue?
During the testimony, Officer Manley tried to argue more or less that it wasn't material. The judge ruled that it was material, and he avoided questioning, and then when he gave answers, some of them were not truthful.
Any other questions for the representatives of the Hendersonville Police Department? Hearing none, if y'all would just have a seat, hang out, and we will bring up Mr. Manley. Mr. Manley, yes. You would, for the record, state your name and give you a rebuttal.
Willis family,
I'll help you out. Did you do it? Are the charges that the department has provided to the post commission, are they facts? Did it happen?
so during the testimony, what I was told during the investigation is not what we just said. There was 2 points during the first testimony that they were misleading. When I was asked about it, this goes back to something that had happened prior to the testimony. And it's noted in the investigation that my wife had started being contacted by the defense attorney, and that he had started showing up at places where she was at, and that I had gone to Lieutenant Harris prior to the testimony, explaining that I was scared, that I felt that I knew I had screwed up, but the danger I felt my wife was in, the amount of complaints that he had submitted against me, and the fact that I didn't know I was being subpoenaed to a case that I wasn't even involved in. I wasn't being told what I was there to testify to. I had explained to him that I do have brain injuries, it is known to them, and that not having the ability to read through a report to prepare myself coming in, felt that it was going to really hinder it. And that his contacting of her, it bothered me so much so, and I was so scared coming into it that I explained to him that I didn't feel that I could be biased in this, that it was really affecting how I was going to testify. And I had asked him that I was concerned that I wasn't going to be able to remember some of the information, and that I was guessing that he was going to ask about the complaints that he had submitted. Lieutenant Harris then agreed and said that he did believe that. I told him that I couldn't remember the information that I'd given to him. He told me that he laughed and said that I had just explained it to him. And that pretty much ended our conversation at that point. And when I did go up there and when I did testify, I just couldn't let it go. I was angry. I was upset. There were things that I legitimately couldn't remember, and I didn't handle them appropriately. I argued with him. I believe I even cussed at him at one point. there was one point where when we listened to the recording, I get answered a question by the judge and the lawyer, they're both asking me questions. And I don't know who I'm answering at that point. There were some things that happened even during the trial or during the testimony. And at one point, he submitted or gave my marriage certificate to the Mr. McDaniel, who is the man I did arrest, 3 times for aggravated burglary. And it really did bother me. But the bottom line is that this woman was going through divorce, and I dated in a relationship with her. Had I not done that, my brain injuries and would not have, I think, had the effect that it did. I don't think I would have been as freaked out as I would have doing that. And as it goes to the investigation into him, I did accept that during that part. I know it's stupid. Initially, I did not do the report, and when I was asked by my sergeant to investigate it, I said, yeah. And that was a dumb decision. This situation.
Questions for Mr. Manley?
With this person, not Commissioner Green. So basically, the woman you were having an affair with, her husband's an attorney, and he used that information and knowledge that you were doing that as leverage against you in a court proceeding.
Yes, sir. The court proceeding was something about a protective order that I wasn't involved in, something that he had himself taken out against the defendant. And then he called me as a witness for it. I had asked about it, why I was being forced to testify, and I was told by my lieutenant that when you're a police officer, you get subpoenaed, you have to go. Which obviously I don't know any of this information, but
it's pretty simple. I'm just gonna ask, when you were sworn in on that witness stand, did you swear an oath on the stand?
yes, sir.
Did you tell the truth on the stand? It's a pretty simple question.
Seriously, I admitted on two of the answers, I believe I was misleading. One of them, I gave the answer, but even the part leading up to it, it didn't need to be there. So, and that doesn't sit well with me.
I understand that, but you understand the effect that that has on your ability to be a police officer from that day forward.
Yes, sir.
And that's why we're here today. It has nothing to do with anything about the reasoning of what got you there, but what was said under oath. Anybody else?
I have a follow-up question for Lieutenant Harris, if you could step aside, sir, for just a minute. This is Commissioner Wilbur.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know, is the DA's office seeking perjury charges?
Not at this time. He has been, the Judge Hunter, the presiding judge that day, deemed that his testimony is not credible. And we've been contacted by the other general sessions judge saying that he's not welcome in their court and will not be allowed to testify.
Thank you very much.
I've got a question.
Yes,
So did he respond to the domestic that this victim that he entered into the relationship with?
he was involved in several cases involving that victim, reports that he took. There was one that occurred where he investigated, it was not really a domestic, but he did investigate allegations from the female he was having a relationship with against her husband and actually sought prosecution against him during that time.
So did he arrest him?
He did not.
Have him take out a warrant for his
He
arrest?
conferred with the magistrate, before he took out a warrant, the magistrate determine charges were not appropriate.
Okay, just to get it straight, the victim that he was investigating on her behalf and had her husband charged, he carried on a romantic relationship with her. Maybe
Well, let me make sure we're on the same page. Yeah, he was having a romantic relationship. She was the victim and the complainant in that report. The allegation was against her husband, the defense attorney, and he investigated that and sought prosecution against that attorney.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Ryan, I'm gonna make a motion to decertify.
Commissioner Beverly, second.
I have a motion to decertify and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hearing none opposed. Motion carries. Our investigator will explain next steps. Jackson County Sheriff's Office, Roy Shepard. Mr. Shepard was submitted for decertification based on his termination. Sir, if you would identify yourself for the record.
Detective Shane Stanton, I'm the GDI for Jackson County.
Go ahead, tell us why we're here today.
The reason why Mr. Shepard was submitted for decertification was based on his termination of some actions that transpired at our General Sessions Court on the 27th of January. Mr. Shepard was asked, he was there in the unofficial capacity. He was asked multiple times if he had a weapon on him or a cell phone, which he stated no to both. The General Sessions judge asked him to step out the courtroom, which he refused, stating that was his wife was there for that court hearing. With these actions, the judge contacted our CID captain and the sheriff, which the CID captain responded, and he was referred to termination based on those actions, which the judge, I think we submitted the letter from the judge to the post commission as well as the termination letter.
Questions for the department? Hearing none, we may call you back up. Yes, sir. Mr. Shepard. Counselor, if you would identify yourself and just let the client identify himself.
Yes.
For the record.
Ladies and gentlemen of the commission, my name is Dana Looper. I represent Mr. Shepard. This is Roy Shepard here with me today. Roy Shepard has been with the Jackson County Sheriff's Department for over 20 years. Since that time, he's only had 2 disciplinary issues in over 20 years. The other one involved a call for service during a disaster when a lady had claimed that he failed to bring formula to him, which was inaccurate. He had just said, we'll get to that when we can. It was a disaster. There was snow on the ground. They couldn't get out. This is the second time that he's ever been disciplined. This discipline resulted in his termination. So what had happened on that day, he was on the clock 10-8. The Sheriff's Department knew that he was on the clock in 10-8. He even had conversations with department members. Hey, I'm going on to the courtroom. My wife's got that hearing today. His wife was a custodian of a child who was what I assume was dependent and neglected. I don't have any knowledge about that proceeding. Of course, that is under seal. However, so he goes with his wife to that proceeding. Again, still 10-8 on the clock. He's got his gun on his holster, on his belt. He has his handcuffs and his badge. This is a very rural county, population of less than 13,000. He goes into the courtroom. He goes through the metal detectors. Him and the judge and other courtroom security staff joke and say, hey, I know you don't have any bombs on you, which is typical banter that you'll have. And then he goes on in, well, yeah, of course. And he was told, well, of course you don't. You're the chief deputy. He goes in and he was asked during the proceeding whether or not he specifically, but everyone in the proceeding was asked, do you have any guns or any cell phones, in which he raised his hand. At that point, he was told, well, I know that you have a gun, you're an officer, so he put his hand back down. Of course, again, his gun is on his belt, visible for all to see, and he also has a cell phone, which is typical standard practice with Jackson County, because when you're 10-8 for service and you're in the courtroom, you cannot have your radio on because it disrupts court. So he had his cell phone in the event that they had a call for service. I want the commission to know that there was no one else there in the courtroom for courtroom security. And I didn't even know that this was a statute, but I found it this morning. There is a statute, Tennessee Code annotated 88201, which says it's the sheriff's duty to provide such court officers to maintain during the sessions of court to maintain order, and they still retain their ability to exercise and use police power. So I would submit to you all that he was also there in that capacity as well to maintain decorum in the courtroom. Nevertheless, he did indicate that he had his cell phone on him and he was told to put his hand down. He thought that that was sufficient to indicate that he had his firearm and his phone on him. During that time, he was not subpoenaed to be there to testify that day, nor was he ever asked to stand to testify. When the judge asked him to leave the courtroom, he did so. He did not refuse. He simply just indicated that he was there in support of his wife, but he did leave the courtroom. I will let you all know that immediately upon being notified that he was being terminated, he was refused the opportunity to give his side of the story. This is the first time that he's been able to give his side of the story. He was even told by officers sending him home, "We don't want to hear your side of the story." I will let you all know too that there is, it's well known among Jackson County that he has expressed desire to run for the sheriff's office. I don't believe that there's any bad form on the court by any means. I think that was just a miscommunication. You know, he raised his hand, "I've got it." He thought that that was sufficient. So I think it was just a misunderstanding, but there may be something more afoul because he was just asked the other day, "Hey, aren't you running for sheriff?" We would ask that there be no action taken. He is employed now, 10-8 as a patrolman in Salina. His chief did try to get me a letter in time to give that to you all that he's been working there. He's been working there for at least a week after being let go and continues to work there. So we'd ask that no action be taken.
You know, this sheriff department, it seems like you're the one doing the talking and the testifying, so I'm gonna ask you the questions.
Yes, sir.
Counselor, do you practice law in Jackson County?
Yes, sir.
And how long have you done that?
I've been an attorney for over 6 years.
6 years. And you've been in the same courtroom with the same judge?
Yes, sir.
And how often does this gentleman come up and practice court officer duties?
So I cannot say with 100% certainty that I've seen him, but I did ask him that question.
That answered my question.
But he has.
So was he out there as a defendant or a witness in a case?
She was there as a witness.
She was there as a
A
witness,
party.
and you said it was some kind of, what type of case was it?
What I assume was like a dependency and neglect action. She was actually the custodian of children who had been removed from a home. So she'd been watching after those children in that capacity as
Right.
custodian.
So why would, in the judge, and I've been to Jackson County a number of times. Matter of fact, I think years ago I was subpoenaed to a case up there. But anyway, if everybody knows everybody in Jackson County, why did the judge ask about the guns and that kind of thing in the courtroom when that should have been took care of at the door with court security?
My understanding is there was no security there on that day, which is unusual because every time I have been in that courtroom, there is security. And I think I did note in her letter that she did point out, due to confusion, there was no security there on that day.
So something has sparked the general sessions judge to the point that he notified the sheriff and or the captain of detectives, because this gentleman, I get what you're saying is the sheriff is responsible for that. I'm very well aware of it, but we have to have a separation of duties. And if he was there, if this was so important to be there to support his wife, it probably would have been a good time to have separated, in my opinion, for him to have separated himself from the department and took the day off and went in to be a supportive husband, not a deputy sheriff. And there's times that sheriffs and their deputies have to separate their duties out. And him being in that courtroom with a gun and a badge, with a potential witness, I would say that any member of the bar in Jackson County, or for that matter, any member of the bar in the state of Tennessee, had this would have went to trial and you was trying to pick juries or whatever, would have thought this could have been intimidating. That this could have showed favoritism, that this could have showed that, hey, look at me, I'm associated to law enforcement. You just sat through here to another case on Hendersonville where a man's lost his career and fixing to be in Tennessee, where he got all crossed up and didn't know which side of the fence he needed to be on, and look at the road that drug him down. I understand it's a small county, but there is a reason why the judge himself has called and said, hey, we got an issue. There's more to what you're exactly right. There's more to this than what we're knowing, but it's serious enough that the judge called. This has nothing to do about running for sheriff. He can run for sheriff, do whatever he wants to do. But when the general sessions judge of Jackson County calls out to the sheriff's office and says, we've got a problem because I've got somebody in my courtroom that may be intimidating a witness or may be coercing somebody and their appearance, I have a problem with that. We have to have a separation of duties. And I hope you understand the point I'm coming from, because I could see you being on the flip side of this coin too. If you were entangled with this case and maybe representing one of these people, you're doing your job. I know that, but that's the perception I'm getting from this.
Well, and Commissioner, she didn't put that in her letter. Her letter was the issue that he didn't raise his hand when he had, or give notification that he had his firearm and his cell phone, in which he stipulates that he did give that notice. And he has appeared before in that courtroom as courtroom security.
It's Jackson County got surveillance footage in there. Have they got surveillance cameras that are recorded in their courtroom?
Yes, sir. And I did do an open records request and that was not provided. Additionally, I asked him if he would submit his cell phone to this governing body to review and even to send it to a forensic person to see if he recorded that proceeding, and he did not. He has made that admission to me that he did not. And finally, on that note, you can only rise as far as your leadership. He did let his leadership know that he was there that day, 10/8, to be with his wife and support, and they didn't say, hey, you need to clock out.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
What about the refusal for the confrontation when he was told to leave the courtroom because he was not a party to the case? And it says in the letter, upon identifying the parties and witnesses, Chief Shepard was not a party. I stated that either as a witness or spectator, it was juvenile court and he would have to step out of the courtroom. He pointed at his wife and stated angrily, quote, she's my wife, end quote, to which I stated that he could be a potential witness. And as such, the rules of evidence required him to be excluded from the courtroom until his testimony was required.
I'll let you go ahead and answer that.
Yes, sir. And as soon as she told me that I needed to leave the courtroom, I left, went to a small courtroom and waited till the court was open. She told me I couldn't be a witness to it. I didn't need to be in there, so I said I left.
Did you retort back to the judge? I mean, is that accurate? Did you say she's my wife? And
You know, she said you need to leave the courtroom. I was letting her know that I was there for my wife. I wasn't saying that I was refusing to leave court. I was just letting her know that was my wife. That was the reason I was there. And she told me I need to leave, so I did.
This is Commissioner Wilbur. What are we to make of the judge's letter wherein she says, I made a finding of fact for the record that Chief Shepard used his position with the County Sheriff's Department to improperly impede the access of Petitioner Stewart to her child and to improperly influence this case.
And Commissioner, I did read that, but
Do you agree with that?
I don't agree with that if he's not had an opportunity to be cross-examined to give his two sides. He did not testify during that proceeding. The sheriff's office didn't give him an opportunity to respond. I've not seen any order finding a fact related to that. So all I have is that letter, but he wasn't given an opportunity to respond. So I have no idea.
I'm going to assume that the judge has made the finding that she has determined that the witnesses were credible. And this is juvenile proceedings, so they're confidential, so you probably won't get it. But that's deeply disturbing to me. And she also said that he never indicated that he had a weapon on him. So are you disputing that he raised his hand, or is that what you're saying he did?
Yes, ma'am. He let me know that he raised his hand when she asked if anyone had a gun or a phone on him, in which he was told to put his hand down because it was obvious and apparent that he would have his gun on him, and it was on the side of his hip.
Because the judge wrote, he indicated to me he did not have a firearm on his person. So are you saying that the judge is incorrect?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying what he has told me is that he had the gun on his hip and then he indicated to her that he was there in that capacity and he put his hand back down.
Thank you.
Commissioner Beverly, just to be sure, you were there to support your wife?
Yes, I was just showed up to support my wife, and I let everybody know that that's what I was going on.
Not in a court security position?
No.
Okay.
anything further from the commissioners?
Did you, Commissioner Beverly, did you record in the courtroom while you're on a record?
No, sir.
All right, I want to make sure I have that.
Commissioner Wright. I guess what we're kind of saying, what you have told us, Counselor, of the facts of him raising his hand and saying, yes, I do, counters what the judge wrote in that letter, which I assume you saw, which quote unquote, asked Roy, do you have a cell phone? Which at that same time, he said yes, but that's not really I guess I'm kind of asking which way was it? Because it seemed like the judge was pretty adamant that this is the way it all happened in this whole thing, so.
Well, and again, that's why I'm characterizing that as a miscommunication. I don't think there was any intentional here. And I'm happy to ask my client, what exactly proceeded that day, what he was asked and what he did.
I guess Commissioner Beverly, what official capacity did you have in that courtroom that day? Can you explain it?
I was the chief deputy of the sheriff department, Jackson County. And I just went up there to support my wife. I was not there to be a court officer or nothing like that, because they always have a court officer. When I got there, there was no court officer. And the judge said, it's being that you're here, I guess we're fine, we don't need a court officer.
So this is Commissioner Wilbur, so you're saying she unofficially appointed you the court officer by saying that?
Well, she didn't point me that. She just said, just being that you're here, I guess we can go ahead and proceed court because we don't have court officers.
Well, did the judge know that was your wife that was in there?
I've been in court before with her over the same deal.
I find it, Commissioner Beverly, I find it troubling though that she would tell her court officer to leave the room if you were there in that position. You see how that's troubling? Were you in there videotaping the courtroom earlier before court had began?
No, sir.
You did not videotape the courtroom in any way?
No, sir.
Surveillance wouldn't show that?
No, sir.
I mean, Sheriff Barton, I would just ask you, as somebody who has extensive knowledge of these types of operations, can you be both a court officer and a witness at the same time?
No, and it's just, it's kind of an unwritten rule. I've had a similar situation like this where, we've been on ahead of time that deputies were going up with custodial matters, things of that nature. You're a Joe Blow citizen. When you sit out on the other side of the bar in the pews as a husband or as a wife or as a father, son, whatever, you're kind of in suspension. Even though, yes, he's the chief deputy of Jackson County, he's that 24/7, 365. But when you go into that judge's domain, there's a separation. You got to pick and choose. And yes, he's going to pick and choose his wife up and over chief deputy, I would hope. But there's a reason why the judge is thinking there's a position here, and there was something else going on in that courtroom that was causing a reason that he was asked to leave. I don't know if the rule was called or what was done, but there was some kind of intimidation factor or something that's caused a conflict. Had he been there just as chief deputy, as I do, I come in the side door through the judge's chambers and I'm sitting beside the judge. If I'm visiting or have business with the judge, same as the court officers. Now, if I go up and unfortunately, my wife has to go to court because she manages property. And I have to separate myself out. Yes, that's my wife. And she's there doing evictions. I try not to even be in the building or around the courthouse. She's on her own.
And you're a constitutional officer.
I'm a constitutional officer, but just because I'm a constitutional officer, Director, we have to separate ourselves because, I don't want to be any impropriety, as we say, to the courts. I don't want any renter of hers to think that, I've even had private process servers go out to separate because it just so happens I'm the judge and it just so happens that my family has a rental problem. We try to separate out. I do not want any personal conflicts. And I've asked other agencies, other people to stay as far removed from that so that I'm not standing up there before you And, we have to do that. And sometimes people they lose connection of where they're at in their positions.
I mean, I guess it just seems, Counselor, there's like a drastic difference between the story of the day that you are presenting on behalf of your client and what the judge wrote in the letter. Because she says specifically that she asked, you know, if he was armed and if he had a cell phone. And you're saying that he said yes, but she's saying that he did not indicate that.
Again, and that's why I keep leaning back on, I think it was just a misunderstanding. It was, does anyone have any weapon? And I hear that all the time. Does anyone have any weapons or a cell phone on them? He raised his hand and he was told to put it back down.
Well, ma'am, he's their boss. He's their boss. He's the chief deputy. He's the undersheriff of Jackson County. He's gonna go anywhere he wants in that building at any time, 24 hours a day.
And I understand, but he's not the boss of the judge.
No, but he's the boss of the court officers or the staff or private security, whatever y'all may have at the courthouse. He's probably got keys in his pocket.
But
to the building.
unfortunately, the department didn't take a step to interview him afterwards. They just.
Did the department know exactly what was going on? Did they know the details of the case? Did they know that there might have been something presented there that the judge, there's something, this is the first time in my 7 years on this board that we've had a judge write a letter in a packet that I recall. And that's pretty serious, Counselor.
And I agree with you, but I think as by humans, when we hear judge, we put that, you know, you're top dog just because of that title. But unfortunately, all we have is the judge's word versus his, and he was never given an opportunity to give his 2 cents until today.
Well, I mean, I'm not a voting member today, but I do have a voice in this, and this 3-person council could turn this over to a formal hearing. And we can give that judge and your client both an opportunity, because in this case, the judge can come testify.
And my client has indicated that he does not fear that, because again, he thinks it was just a gross misunderstanding. We're not saying that the judge is being dishonest. We just think it was a misunderstanding where it's, you know, rural county. Hey, yeah, I'm here. It's a joke. We had already entered in on a joke because she said, you don't have any bombs. You don't have to go through the metal detector because you're my chief deputy. It was just a very relaxed proceeding. And I just think it was a misunderstanding.
Well,
I'm gonna just jump in because the judge says this is a contentious and emotional custody matter. It's not a loosey-goosey, hey, what's up? The judge is classifying and categorizing this as a very emotional, and it is when it involves children, and contentious. But it's your client's position that it was all just like, hey, how you doing?
No, ma'am. I'm talking about the beginning before the proceeding started is where it was the lax nature where she said where he was coming in through the metal detector. You know, I know you don't have to go through there. I know you don't have any bombs or anything like that because you're my chief deputy. That's what I'm referencing as being relaxed.
Thank you.
Commissioner, it seems to me like a lot of this, I'm reading that the judge was taking more offense to him having a firearm than not, which then I guess for Jackson County might be able to answer it better, but does this judge not allow firearms in her courtroom at all?
In the official capacity, she
In an
does.
official capacity?
If we're not the subject of whatever the case is, if we were the respondent in the case, we'd have to be there 100% in an official capacity.
And I understand that too, but we talk all the time about your law enforcement officer 24/7. And
I agree. I mean, I'm sure.
I guess I'm saying I would have my firearm on me too.
I know, but it's also contentious. We've also got a case pending in Kentucky where the sheriff went in and killed the judge.
Yep.
Okay, and that sheriff had access to the entire building, the judge's chambers and the whole 9 yards. So these judges on high alert. Doesn't matter. I'm the elected constitutional office. I can screw up too. So can chief deputy, so can court officer, so can every state trooper. And that judge is looking at this because it is a related family member to this chief deputy sitting in the courtroom with a contentious child custody issue. And this judge has got something has sparked this judge to say, there's a safety concern here. There's a coercion concern here. There's an intimidation factor here. I haven't, you know, I'm hearing that I'm there for my wife, so I'm there as a Joe Blow citizen. It just so happens that my job is I'm chief deputy today. He didn't go up there to be court security. He went up there to be a supportive husband. And whatever that was with that custody matter has sparked this judge that there's something that she didn't like.
This is Commissioner Green, I don't know it either, but I've got an opinion similar that he said already that I was there for my wife. And according to the judge's letter, she looked directly at him and said, "Do you have a gun?" And he didn't respond yes until, and even about a phone until the other counselor says he does have one. And then when she specifically asked him, "Do you have a phone?" Then he goes, "Yes." So I'm going to ask you a question, sir, not your attorney. Were you in uniform?
No, sir, I wasn't in uniform.
So you were in plain clothes.
So I had a blue jeans and a work shirt
Was your gun
in my,
where you could see it, or was it underneath the shirt?
you could see it. My gun was where you could see it, my badge was where you could see it, and my handcuffs also.
So when she said, "Does anyone in here have a gun?" You're saying you had raised your hand and she just didn't see it.
And I told her, I said, "I do." She said, "Of course you do, you're the chief deputy."
Why would she write the contrary?
I don't know.
She have something against you?
I don't have a clue, sir.
I think the best outcome of this case is gonna go ahead and move to a full commission and so we can get to the bottom of it. So, Commissioner Wright, make a motion to move to full commission.
Commissioner Beverly, second.
We have a motion to send this to the full commission for a formal hearing. Any discussion?
I would, Mr. Chairman, even though I'm not, as an investigative point for Mr. Cantrell, Mr. Creevy, I would try to do some kind of retention letter to Jackson County Sheriff's Office and or the court clerk in Jackson County to see if there's any preservation of footage in the courthouse. You're going to need that moving forward. If it's there and any other witnesses, I'd get a preservation going.
Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. The vote is on the motion to move this to a formal hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We'll set a date for a formal hearing. Our investigator will talk to you, Counselor, about next steps.
Thank you.
Mr. Secretary,
Yes, sir.
I'm just gonna see if the ones that, I hate some of these departments, everybody's gonna probably get a pretty long day if we go back and address the ones that are not here.
Sure.
They might be able to get them back on the road.
Sure, we
We
can
may
do
not
that.
have to time now, but not here.
Nope, we can do that. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna call the names out and what why they are being decertified, and then when we get to the end, we can take all of those if somebody, they're all not here, and then take them as one motion. Hendersonville Police Department, Stephen Wilson. Mr. Wilson was submitted for decertification based on resigning with disciplinary actions pending. The Lebanon Police Department, James Benton. Mr. Benton was submitted for decertification based on his termination. Brian Ray. Harris Police Department, Brian M. Ray. Mr. Ray was submitted for decertification based on his termination. Shelby County Sheriff's Office, Michael Isgari. Mr. Isgari was submitted for decertification based on his termination. Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security, Mackenzie Cross. Mr. Cross was submitted for decertification based on his termination. Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security, Ronald Davis. Ronald Davis's case has been reset till July. His attorney reached out to me. They're in the appeal process. Okay. Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security, Chad M. Garland. Mr. Garland.
Mr. Garland reached out to me this morning and said he had a family issue, he was not gonna be here, so I'll let the commission decide what the next steps are.
Okay, we'll take that one separately. All right, all of those that I just mentioned, with the exception of Mr. Garland, who we'll take up separately towards the end, are all not.
Commissioner Wright, make a default motion for decertification.
Beverly, second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor of the motion for decertification by default, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. So if we have departments here and that was your only business, you are free to go. That was a good call, Commissioner. We're gonna be here a minute today.
You've already done this.
All right, let's see, Monterey Police Department, Bill Randolph, are you going to present the agreed order tomorrow to the commission? Council?
Yes.
Okay. Just skip that then. And move on to the Shelby County Sheriff's Office. Sheldon D. Smith. Mr. Smith was submitted for decertification based on his termination. I know we know each other, but for the record, if you would identify yourself and tell us why we are here today.
Carla Allen, ALLEN, the Director of Training for the Shelby County Sheriff's Office. I'm here today in regards to a decertification on Shelton Smith. On June 11 of 2024, an investigation was opened up on Mr. Smith based upon his conduct that occurred on June 9th of 2024. It was discovered that he and another deputy had some issues on a traffic stop. The victim's spouse came into the sheriff's office substation and wanted to inquire about a vehicle belonging to him. The night before, his wife had come in contact with two sheriff's deputies. She came to the house and did not have the vehicle. She stated to her spouse that she was intoxicated. She had come in contact with two deputies and they had confiscated her car and she didn't know exactly where it was located. So with that information, we looked at some of the reports we had and we determined through the body camera footage that the individuals in question was a Shelton Smith along with another deputy that was off duty at the time. He gave us information to launch this investigation. And so we started looking into what we had and that it was determined that Shelton Smith was the individual in charge of the scene that night. A female was pulled over on the side of the road. We had several calls come into the dispatcher saying that they felt like she was intoxicated. Deputy Smith was the scene officer. He was in control of the scene the entire time. The off-duty deputy showed up and they spoke with her. Both of them evaluated the traffic stop that they had. She was intoxicated. They called the Shelby County Fire Department. They made the scene and they made a determination that she was not medically incompetent. It was just that she was intoxicated. The victim refused to be transported. So once she refused to not be transported, she signed a consent form and the fire department left the victim in the care of those two individual deputies, Smith being the primary officer. At some point, these individuals searched her car. There was an open container, there was a container in the car. It appeared to be a metal bottle. The other officer retrieved the bottle from the vehicle, opened it up, put it up to his nose, smelled the content in the bottle and poured it out on the road. He got with Deputy Smith and all of this is being recorded on the body camera footage. The other officer told him that They was gonna take care of this. They was gonna take her to a hotel. She made a statement to them that she had been involved with a DV with her spouse. She lived in the area as to where the traffic stop was made. Those officers made a decision not to have her transported, not to call someone, and they did not take her into custody. The both of them took the victim's vehicle, parked it at the sheriff's office substation, left the keys with her. They went back to the scene, put this victim into the vehicle of Deputy Smith. Smith took off his body camera. He failed to realize that the in-car camera was still recording. She was so intoxicated, she was leaned over in the backseat of the car. These individuals took her to a hotel in the area. They were seen on the hotel camera footage, holding her up, taking her inside of the hotel. The other officer went into her purse, got a debit card, and paid for the room. Both deputies went up to the hotel room with her. Deputy Smith came out about 5 minutes later. The other deputy stayed there, and we got video showing that he left the hotel 1 hour later. So while they were also on the scene, the other officer made a suggestion to Deputy Smith not to do certain reports. He told him just go ahead and do the total of the vehicle. Do not write in a report that she was intoxicated. Do not write in a report that she had been involved with her spouse on a DV. And when those individuals took her to that hotel, after we spoke with her, she indicated that the other officer had sexual intercourse with her. He stayed at the hotel for 1 hour with her, and at some point, she did tell us in her statement that on that night, she was so intoxicated, she was trying to make it home. She said she decided to try to turn around and go back to a different location. She ran into a curb and damaged her car. There was no police, there was no report taken about any damages on the car. She said that they suggested that they would take care of her, and that's what they did. They took her to the hotel. When we took the statement from Shelton Smith, he came in and gave his statement. He lied multiple times about what had actually occurred on the scene that night. He lied that he first said she was not intoxicated. Then he changed his report and said she was intoxicated. There was damages to the vehicle. He failed to properly report that in his report. And he failed to put that in his report as well. Shelton Smith at the time was a probationary employee. So the sheriff's office brought the following charges against him: compliance with regulation, unsatisfactory performance, truthfulness, duty to intervene, official reporting. He was a probation employee at the time. So the sheriff's office terminated him based on these charges and the lack of him being truthful during the statement, the actions of him that night on the scene. They failed to even arrest her. The video camera shows that she was so intoxicated, she couldn't function. And he was the officer in charge of the scene that night. The other individual that's part of this, that's not here today, he made all the suggestions as to what he needed to do in order to falsify these reports. And indeed, that's what Shelton Smith did on that evening, and submitted all his reports.
This Sheriff Barton is this deputy, I missed out getting some order. Has he been charged with official misconduct, rape, anything?
No, sir. When we made contact with the victim, at the time, she refused to want to prosecute. She did not want to prosecute, so that's where we are on that. We spoke with the District Attorney General's office. And at the time, there was nothing that they would accept as far as a prosecution. But in the last couple of days, this case has gotten a lot of publicity.
Oh,
So according to the AG's office now, they're looking into something else, trying to further this investigation.
it looks like a cut and dry case that a kindergartner could prosecute.
How did so the other officer was not on duty?
He was
correct?
off duty and
Was he in uniform?
no, sir, he was in plain clothes. And Deputy Smith approached him and talked to him and asked him several times, "Are you on duty?" He says, "No, I'm not on duty. I was actually headed to the substation to pick up a vehicle for a detail he had the following day." But he suggested on that scene for Deputy Smith to do all these things that was not ethical. And indeed, that's what Deputy Smith did.
Says Commissioner Wilbur, you said the DA's office is now getting interested. Are they interested in this particular officer as well, or just the officer who?
Well, now I have not had that conversation with them. That's gonna be going through our general assignment division. But after, like I said, this information came out, they are looking at some different charges. Because at the time when we spoke with them, there was nothing else that we were looking at the time.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Shelby County Sheriff's Office?
Those guys here today?
Hearing none, Mr. Smith is here. Mr. is Gary, the other party involved in this, was just decertified by default.
Again, I'm gonna give some orderly advice. I think we're to a point here, based off what the commander is issue, we're in the situation.
That's, yeah, at least want to give them a chance to.
Absolutely, I'm curious to hear.
Yeah, and then
But I just want that to know ahead of time. I have a duty myself to inform.
So I guess the question would be if, Mr. Smith, can you step up? Identify yourself for the record.
Sheldon Smith.
With the possibility of some sort of pending criminal action, you know, anything you say here obviously would be utilized against you in court. But would you be willing to get with our attorneys and voluntarily suspend your post-certification?
Yes.
Until such time as any potential legal action, because, you know, we obviously, you know, for your due process, need to hear your side of the story since you're here. But,
Mr. Secretary, I don't think you need to voluntarily, the board can vote to suspend this based off of information, but I just want him to know if he elaborates any more on what's said.
Sure.
And we're talking about possible charges, not
Definite charges.
So, yeah, I mean, and that is true too. This informal subcommittee could vote to suspend him. And now if he appealed that, would it be similar to the decertifications where it would not take effect until he's had a chance for a full formal hearing?
Yes, correct.
So I think the best option would be for him to sign a voluntary suspension, because then he is signing that and it does not have to go to a formal, like if the full commission votes to decertify somebody, then they decide to appeal, then that decision to decertify it does not go into effect until they've had everything's gone through the appeal. So this matter would keep him from working sooner and more, I think would stand up better.
So Mr. Smith, just to kind of circle back to what we're considering, is you voluntarily surrender your post certificate at this point. You are not able to work in law enforcement in the state of Tennessee while that suspension is set. And you can come back out of suspension after the district attorney concludes their investigation, but you will still be up for decertification at that point. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Motion to enter into an agreed order of suspension pending the charges.
Would we typically, we would reset it to next month, pending the opportunity for everybody to work this out.
We can do that. We can continue it to next month pending the signature. That way, if he doesn't sign, he'll just have to be back here next month.
I'll make an amended motion.
Or like it would be July. We don't have it June, but you get the point.
Commissioner Wright, second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Beverly and a second by Commissioner Wright to reset this to July. Our investigator is going to get with you and tell you next steps. I just want to tell you this before the commission votes. But if you do not sign the voluntary suspension, then this will be heard in July.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor of resetting this to July pending working out a agreed order of suspension, say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries.
Commander, also, would you mind keeping Director Bello informed as how the criminal investigation
Yes,
is
sir.
going, moving forward?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tennessee Department of Safety, Clint L. Cooper. Mr. Cooper was submitted for decertification based on his termination. Sir, you're no stranger to the Post Commission, but if you would just identify yourself again and tell us why we're here.
Yes, sir. Sergeant Toby Carter, Department of Safety and Homeland Security. I'm an investigator for the Office of Professional Accountability. We're here today on a matter that happened in March of 2024, March 17th at approximately 1 a.m. Mr. Cooper was at a establishment called Spanky's Bar and Grill in Cookeville, Tennessee. He was there off duty, just enjoying time with his friends. While inside the facility there, he came in contact with another occupant, Isaiah Gardenhire. Mr. Gardenhire was walking past where Mr. Cooper was standing with his friends and pushed a third subject into Mr. Cooper. Due to Mr. Gardenhire's actions, a disagreement ensued between Mr. Cooper and Mr. Gardenhire. Because of that disagreement, the bar staff asked Mr. Gardenhire to leave, and he was escorted out, and Cookeville Police Department responded. They told Mr. Gardenhire not to return. If he did, they would arrest him for trespassing. At approximately 3 a.m., Mr. Cooper was in the parking lot of the Spanky's Bar and Grill in his vehicle when Mr. Gardenhire approached his vehicle and began to knock on the window. Mr. Cooper stated to us during his interview that he didn't know why he was there. He felt like he was going to be assaulted, so he exited his vehicle and then began to have a conversation with Mr. Gardenhire. Video shows, there's no audio of the video, but the video shows that Mr. Cooper and Mr. Gardenhire were standing face to face. And then Mr. Cooper began hitting Mr. Gardenhire in his upper torso and head several times, knocking him to the ground. While on the ground, Mr. Cooper is seen repeatedly striking Mr. Gardenhire. And then approximately 90 seconds later, Cookeville Police Department returns after the assault occurred. And they spoke with Mr. Gardenhire, who said that Mr. Cooper and him had an altercation. Mr. Cooper hit him, knocked out his tooth. When Cookeville Police Department questioned Mr. Cooper about it, they could notice the blood on his left wrist. They asked to see his right hand, which Mr. Cooper was hiding behind his back at one point and inside of his pocket. When asked about the blood, and he had an apparent gash on one of his knuckles, he said that him and Mr. Gardenhire were in pushing match, and he didn't say anything about hitting Mr. Gardenhire. When questioned by our office, he said he was 90% certain that he hit Mr. Gardenhire, but he couldn't be 100%. And then when confronted, why he was hiding his hand from the police officer, he said that he didn't want to escalate the situation and get arrested that night. For the altercation between him and Mr. Gardenhire. So based off his action that night, Mr. Gardenhire spoke with a magistrate who issued an assault warrant. Mr. Cooper was arrested, and then he had a preliminary hearing and went upstairs, and last I heard is up to be reviewed in November of this year. Mr. Cooper did appeal his termination, but during his appeal process, he voluntarily withdrew.
Questions from the commission?
Any status on the criminal case?
Just that it's up for review in November, so
pending.
Yeah, it's just pending. I guess based off of if he has good behavior, they'll probably get rid of it.
Any further questions?
I think we're kind of in the similar situation as the one before. Anything he says can be used against him. Yes, would he entertain a voluntary surrender or suspension? I'm sorry.
Mr. Cooper, will you step up, please?
Sir.
Identify yourself for the record.
I'm Clint Cooper.
Are you currently working anywhere in law enforcement?
No, sir.
Would you entertain a voluntary suspension? Would you sign a voluntary suspension of your post commission?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Beverly, motion to enter a voluntary order of suspension and reset for 1 month for review.
July.
Or July, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Vogler, second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Beverly. We have a proper second by Commissioner Wilbur. This is to reset to July pending a, you can have a seat, sir, pending a working out the agreed order of suspension. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor, motion say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Sir, our investigator will tell you next steps. Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security, Chad Garland. We'll actually get that in just a second because Kevin Creed will have to present on that. Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security, Kurt Parsley. Mr. Parsley was submitted for decertification based on his termination. You would identify yourself for the record and then tell us why we're here.
Yes, sir. Lieutenant Harold Stewart with the Department of Safety and Homeland Security's Office of Professional Accountability. I'm the lieutenant over at the Office of Professional Accountability. So back in June of 2024, Mr. Parsley was involved in a couple of incidents. The first one that I'm going to tell you about is a single car crash that he went out to assist with. And subsequently, he arrested 2 occupants of that vehicle for DUI. And then he began to look for the crashed vehicle after he released those 2 arrested individuals to the county to be taken for, I believe, either to the jail or for testing. While he's looking for this vehicle, he is not wearing his seatbelt. The seatbelt alarm, you can see the light on the dash. You can hear the audible dinging. At one point, he takes out his cell phone, answers a call, and is using his GPS. He's holding his phone up to his right ear and talking on the phone. Additionally, while he's driving his car, he's also holding a flashlight in his left hand out of his driver's side window. So he's operating his vehicle with no hands while driving down the road, looking for a crashed vehicle, the side of the road. So he has difficulty finding the vehicle, but get some assistance from the county and is able to find it. So when he gets out there and is processing the vehicle, the car seat had already been taken out of the vehicle, and he gets done towing the vehicle and he begins doing his reports later on. While doing his reports, he puts in his crash report information that wasn't accurate. He made assumptions that that car seat was properly installed in the vehicle and was in the middle seat, if I remember correctly, based on the fact that the child's injuries, the child didn't appear like it had any injuries. He was questioned by his lieutenant and his sergeant for an initial interview later. And during that interview, his lieutenant asked him if he watched the video after that incident, to which he said no. when he was questioned by us in OPA and confronted with the audit report from Axon, he had in fact watched the video. He believes that it was a misunderstanding, that he misunderstood what Lieutenant Beard was asking, that Lieutenant Beard was asking if he watched the video just concerning the seatbelt portion, but that is not what Lieutenant Beard asked. Lieutenant Beard paused his line of questioning and asked him, have you watched the video? To which he said he had not. The other incident in question was another incident that happened in June. With this incident, he was involved in a pursuit. So prior to the pursuit beginning, he observes a vehicle that's driving erratically. He says the vehicle is speeding, swerving all over the road, and he believes the driver of the vehicle to be intoxicated. And that vehicle takes off at a high rate of speed from after running a stop sign. When the vehicle does that, he activates his emergency equipment and begins to chase the vehicle. When we went and watched the Axon video, that information is not fully accurate either. When the intersection based on the GPS location of the Axon map at the time, he activated his emergency equipment after that intersection. At no point do you see any vehicle in front of him while he is running emergency equipment driving at a high rate of speed until he approaches an intersection where there is a vehicle that stopped at a stop sign there. He makes a right on that road, and off in the distance, you do see a vehicle that's up ahead that's making a left turn, and that vehicle, I believe, approximation was about 1,200 feet away from where he was at. During Mr. Parsley's interview, Mr. Parsley said at that point, I believe it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, said that is where he identified the driver's gender. Was at that point right there, he could tell that it was a male driving the vehicle at 1,200 feet at 1 o'clock in the morning on a dark country road. So at that point, he's still got his emergency equipment going. The vehicle goes up to the top of the hill and crests the top of the hill. And there at an intersection comes to a stop in the middle of the roadway where Mr. Parsley pulls up behind the vehicle with all of his emergency equipment activated. Mr. Parsley gets out of his vehicle and conducts a felony takedown by himself. He orders the driver to roll down the windows, stick the hands out the windows, and talks the driver out of the vehicle. The driver complies, comes out of the vehicle, walks back, is taken into custody. And Mr. Parsley brings him over to the passenger side of the vehicle and never searches the driver at all. At that point, he abandons the driver on the passenger side of the vehicle, goes back over to his driver's side and notifies dispatch that he's arrested the driver, but fails to notify dispatch or the driver what he was arrested for. He gets back over and talks to the driver and begins to speak to the driver and elicit incriminating statements from the driver and never Mirandizes. So at that point, other deputies begin to arrive, and Mr. Parsley makes statements to, I believe, the driver and to a deputy that that driver was doing 90 plus miles per hour. Mr. Parsley was questioned about how he ascertained how fast that vehicle was going, because he said that he never operated his radar, he never paced them, and never used the LiDAR. So we asked, well, how did you know how fast that vehicle was going? Because in his sworn affidavit, I'll read that section for you. Mr. Parsley states, I observed the vehicle driving in a reckless manner without due regard. The speed limit on this road is 45 miles per hour and the road has very sharp curves. I activated my emergency equipment and observed the vehicle at times traveling 80 miles per hour or faster, is what he put in his sworn affidavit. After activating his emergency equipment, that vehicle is never seen to be able to ascertain the speed at all. In his sworn affidavit, he said he observed it after activating his emergency equipment. Our camera system backs up 30 seconds after activation, and no point do you see the vehicle. So on his citation, it also says that he listed the speed of the vehicle at 80 miles per hour. And when we questioned about it, he was 100% confident that the vehicle was doing 70 miles per hour, but he was not 100% confident that the vehicle was doing 80 miles per hour. And he was 0% confident that the vehicle was doing 90 miles per hour, even though he told people on the scene that the vehicle was traveling 90 miles per hour. So in that citation, he claimed the driver to be doing 80 miles per hour, but in fact, he says he was only doing 70 miles per hour, but he never verified that speed and was never close enough to be able to estimate it based on the information that he put in his sworn statement and his sworn affidavit. He never notified dispatch that he was even involved in a pursuit. And dispatch was having difficulty keeping up with the pursuit because he wasn't on one particular radio channel. He was bouncing around to different radio channels. So he had his portable radio on one channel, his car radio on another. And when he got out to do his felony stop, he was speaking to him on the portable, and there was miscommunication that was going on. Dispatch asked him to get onto the right radio channel, but he said he could not because of the roadway and the conditions. So Mr. Parsley has his prior disciplines with the department. He had a 2-day suspension that dealt with the traffic stop, where he was aggressive on the traffic stop. He got a written warning and a 10-day suspension for disobeying orders and work assignments. And then he had a 1-day suspension for pursuit with a motorcycle. So based on progressive discipline, the department chose to terminate Mr. Parsley's employment based on his job performance and his credibility.
Lieutenant Commissioner Wright, do you know when Mr. Parsley came on the department, or was hired?
Yes. We have his hire date listed in 2018. Yes, sir.
Any other questions for the representative of the Highway Patrol? Hearing none, thank you, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Parsley, step up to the podium, identify yourself for the record, and give your side.
Kurt Parsley, just a few remotes. When I was being questioned by Lieutenant Beard, he asked me when I went to look for the vehicle, did I go back and watch my video? I said no. I understood his question. He's asked me if I went to look for that vehicle that morning. He asked me, do you know you have your seatbelt on? I said yes. I took it off because I was trying to look for the vehicle. OPA's question to me was, did you go back and review your video? I said yes for the field sobriety part, which field sobriety part was for the vehicle. It was down in Normandy Dam. I was unfamiliar where the vehicle was. I was on the phone with my sergeant, Charlie Harris. Yes, I did take my seatbelt off. I turned my cruise lights on, stayed blue lights on the trail car. I believe maybe 30, 35 miles an hour as fast as I was going. I was on the phone with Sergeant Harris. He said that I kind of told him about where the vehicle was. He said, well, it may be off in a ravine or something. You'll need lights and stuff. I was like, okay. So I was trying to talk, I was talking on the phone. I was unable to find the vehicle. Sergeant Harmon Campbell with the Coffee County Sheriff's Department. Said to me, he goes, hey, you have troubles? Yeah. He goes, come on. So it was off at an intersection of railway. Sergeant Campbell did remove the child restraint from the vehicle. I asked him, he said, yeah, I got it in the middle seat. That's why I put it in the report. I did not observe, I did not see the child seat in the vehicle, but he did pull it from the vehicle. On the second one, I was coming home from work in Bonnaroo. I observed the vehicle, failed to maintain lane. It took off at a high rate of speed. It was on Pocahontas Road and towards Shelby Road. I did make contact with the vehicle at the intersection of Shelby Road and Jacksboro Highway. It was a Nissan Maxtra Alta. It was sitting in the middle of the road. It takes off at a very high rate of speed. The vehicle gets out of care. I flip my lights on. I'm going after the vehicle. Off in the distance, I can see the taillights of the vehicle, but due to the curvy nature of Shelby Road, I wasn't willing to drive faster at night, try to wreck my vehicle. I caught up to the vehicle at Old Well Road and made a basic right turn at 30 miles an hour. Is what I estimate it to be. I make the turn, it goes down and comes up. I seen a black male in the driver's seat look at me. That's where I was able to identify. We went around the corner. No, I did not pat him down. I did not read him as, I did not recognize him. I didn't think I was asking him anything incriminating. I asked him, hey man, what are you doing? Like, you didn't see me? So just those are the bones.
What are you doing these days?
Working at a towing company here.
Which
Laster's Towing in Mayville.
Laster's towing?
Yes.
I wonder what happened to you. I hadn't seen you in a long time. I had known nothing about any of this. How long have you been gone from the highway patrol?
December 18th of 2024, I believe. It's in December 24 is when I was terminated.
So it hadn't been a year yet.
No, sir.
Are you planning on getting back into law
I
enforcement?
would love to stay in law enforcement. I love helping people. I believe that's my purpose in life. It's just I find joy in it, and my wife sees that I find joy in it. You know, she thinks I'm kind of lost about being in law enforcement because I actually witnessed a vehicle crash not too long ago. Where the gentleman did pass away, but I jumped in there and we got him out of the vehicle and we was giving him CPR and stuff, trying to give him some life. And she noticed that in that I was very calm because see, that's what I was meant to do, just help people.
You still living in Warren, up in the edge of Warren County?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm quite familiar with Old Well Road, Jacksboro Road, and been in a few tussles there in those locations myself. Folks out in that neighborhood seem to get a little wild sometimes. I know this gentleman, I've known him, I think Coffee County was your first duty assignment.
It's Bangor, sir. Yes.
We've been in some situations out on the big road too, haven't we?
Well,
yeah, I mean, obviously I could testify for this guy, but, I would have to say that, my department nor I have ever had any issues with this young man. I had no idea that, I have so many troopers come and go in my county because we have a set of scales and they rotate out, but, I'm kind of taken back with this today, but, good young man out here. Good to see you.
Do we know what the ultimate disposition was for this, one that was a pursuit, not a pursuit, reckless driving? Do we know what?
he pled guilty to his charges. It was due care of speed was his charges. I was initially going to charge for reckless driving. Initially was going to be evading, but he's very adamant that he knows after him. And I've ran that a few times. I was okay, and he's pretty adamant. But I told him I was going to charge him reckless driving for almost hitting the vehicle, making an evasive right turn. Upon him just talking to me, he just graduated high school, was in HVAC school at TCAT. Just had a kid, and just thinking about it, when I first started, I was told by Sergeant Boyd, now Lieutenant Jeff Boyd, that we can do carrying speeding in regards to place of reckless. It still would be reckless, but we wouldn't have that on the history. With HVAC, if he would try to get a job with a company, the reckless driver would ruin that for him. Yes, he did make some mistakes. I made some mistakes too, but I didn't want to hinder that guy from getting a good career. And that at the gas station, Shell station, next day on 55, he actually ran into me. And he said, "Thank you for stopping me from going to go fight somebody," because he had learned that another male had engaged in a relationship with his girlfriend and the mother of his child. So he was very high on emotions that night. And I told him I was, glad you're still alive. You're able to see your kid and go through school and get a good career to support your family.
The kids you got now?
Too, sir.
Two. How old are they?
One's 6, the other just turned 1.
Yeah. They grow up fast.
They do. The youngest just started walking last week, so he's on it. It keeps me on my toes too.
Partially, the department's using this in totality with some of the other suspensions and stuff you had to get the action that they did. Can you tell us what the 2-day, the 10-day, and the 1-day suspension is all about?
The first 2 day was a bad traffic stop on a female. As I had her license walking back to my vehicle, her vehicle lurched forward twice and she took off. Not just hammered down, but to like take off like somebody's trying to get back to traffic real quick. I took that as a sign of she's fleeing. There was a school zone in front and school zone behind. So I stopped the vehicle. I never cussed her. I believe she said something. I said, "Shut your mouth." So they got me for language and dipping on camera. What it come to find out was it was a misunderstanding of words. I guess my slang and I kind of talk a little fast, kind of threw her off, and she thought I told her. Trying to think of the words. It was hang tight, be right back. She thought I said okay and gave her all of her stuff back to her, and she didn't realize I didn't give her license back to her because I try to keep minimal stuff I have in my hands. If I can look at your registration insurance and see it's good, I'll hand it back to you. I'll need your driver's license. So that it was a miscommunication. She thought I said something else, and when I was walking back, she said sorry. And I've had a lot of people say they were sorry for speeding, so that's what I took it as. She meant sorry as she didn't understand what I said. I didn't pick up on that because all I heard was I'm sorry. So I thought she was apologizing for the speeding, which she wasn't. And I was on the way back to my vehicle when she had said that. The 10-day suspension is a deal of things. Can't really remember off the top of my head what everything was in there, but I received a coaching for a violation of the ties agreement. I was on administrative duties because a female had called in OPA and complained that I had domestically abused my wife. And I was on administrative for that for 5 months, and I was doing crash reports and stuff for troopers, minor offense reports and stuff. And I just kind of copied and pasted, but kind of trying to get it done because the report, it was a few days late when they wanted to file the report. So I was just trying to get all that done and get it in. So I got a coaching off that. When they suspended me for 10 days, they suspended me for the coaching session that I had just received, but I didn't have any more violations of it. I believe maybe, I can't really remember what all, I know they got me for going out of district without supervision approval, but it was to my wife's baby doctor's appointment. And when OPA questioned me, I said, I went, I wasn't trying to do anything. It was just that on my first kid, he almost died at birth. And I didn't know that until 4 days later, because the mother child would not speak to me or anything. So I kind of got a second chance to kind of do what I missed the first time. So I was just kind of really excited. I was actually able to go to these appointments and stuff because my first son, with him pretty much almost died. I never got to be there for him. I didn't know the 4 days after that he was actually, I found out through my grandma that he actually was. So that's why I did that. And that's why I explained to him. I can't really remember what the 10 day was. There's quite a few things. With the motorcycle pursuit, Captain Ogle investigated on behalf of OPA. They said I was reckless driving and I had achieved a speed greater than 130 miles an hour. I didn't go up 130 mile an hour. I think the best speed I could have got was 110. It was on Highway 55, right there in front of Bridgestone Drive and stuff. On the reckless, it's two travel lanes going this way, a continuous turn lane, 2 lanes, and a little small right lane to go into Bridgestone. I had a car there, so I went up, had cars and lanes trying to get through the red light. I looked over to the right turn lane to go into Bridgestone shoulder was clear. So I was trying to go through that way. I had a car that it kind of really didn't decide if it want to go left or right. So I tapped my brakes pretty hard. You see in the front of the vehicle, dip down in the video. And that's where I was caught for reckless driving. Just trying to avoid a vehicle. And they said that I drove down the continuous turn lane down Highway 55. Yes, I did, but it was the only open lane I had trying to get around traffic. And I was a vehicle quite a distance ways had started slowing down, so I started getting my brakes and getting back over. But they got me for reckless driving and then speeds of 130, which my speed on my camera was not working at the time. It was having some issues.
Kurt, would you admit that you're kind of a crap magnet?
Oh, absolutely, sure. Absolutely.
It just seems like every time you were 10-8, that all hell would break loose.
That was the hand I was dealt. So we tried to make the best of it. No Lakewood Park, we got a little bit down there.
Commissioner Wright again. Do you have prior law enforcement?
I don't,
THP?
I don't, sir. THP was my first law enforcement agency.
Commissioner Beverly. I would highlight majority of what led you here was policy violations with the troopers itself, correct?
Yes, sir.
If you were pursuing a law enforcement job somewhere else, where are you thinking you'd be interested in serving?
Coffee County, Warren County, possibly. I got to know Coffee County quite well, and there's a little bit of hustle and bustle down there, so I like to be a busy man in Warren County. Obviously one officer wouldn't like to work in his hometown where his roots are. That's where most of my family is, so.
So a local municipal jurisdiction, you think is where you would end up?
Yes, sir. Hopefully so. It just depends on the agency whether they take a chance on hiring you or not. So I would like to, but it'd be up to.
Good. Commissioner Wright, I don't think that there might be a agency out there that might take you on, knowing all the circumstances for sure. We'll make a motion for no action.
Commissioner Beverly, I'm gonna second that.
We have a motion and a proper second for no action. Any discussion about the motion? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
Good luck. Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security, Justin L. Ruth. Mr. Ruth was submitted for decertification based on his termination. Our third different one and our third different member of OPA. So if you would just identify yourself for the record and tell us why we're here.
I'm Sergeant Justin Roll with THP. The reason why we're here today is just request certification for Trooper Justin Ruth. On November 2nd, 2024, Trooper Ruth's troop lieutenant was conducting monthly Exxon video reviews. During the review, the lieutenant watched a body worn camera of Trooper Ruth. This video recorded him conducting a level 1 commercial vehicle inspection and not taking the brake measurements as required. The lieutenant reviewed the inspection report that Trooper Ruth completed for this inspection and noticed that he documented that he had done the brake measurements for that commercial vehicle. The lieutenant questioned him about it, of why he did that. He responded that he needed the inspections completed with his yearly numbers before a deadline. So the lieutenant went back and he looked at some data back in August of 24 and viewed other Exxon videos of Trooper Ruth conducting level 1 inspections. And as a result of that review, the lieutenant discovered 5 inspections where he documented measuring brakes that he did not actually measure. The lieutenant also discovered that on 5 of those inspections that were kind of previously mentioned, plus 2 other ones, he failed to conduct a thorough inspection by not inspecting multiple other items that were, which are considered critical to ensure that the commercial vehicle is safe to operate on the roadway. By not performing inspection properly, he left critical safety items unconfirmed. The department concluded that Trooper Ruth falsified official documents by intentionally documenting the brake measurements that he did not measure, and Trooper Ruth was terminated from the department. Subsequently from that, he went through a step 1, step 2 appeal, which were decision was upheld. I believe next Thursday, week from today, he is having a pre-conference getting ready for a step 3.
Questions for the representative of the Highway Patrol?
This is Commissioner Wilbur. So we have 7, my iPad just quit. So we have 7 times he falsified records. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I believe it's
I apologize. The noise you're hearing is we're having a document for one of the decertification hearings that we're going to have here in just a few minutes is being uploaded to the iPad. So for some reason, the iPads are all going crazy. So I apologize about that.
Commissioner, I'm looking here since October 28th, October 28th. I think this is the same inspection. There's October 27th, October 22nd, and a September 24th, and it seems to be all on a brake on brake measurements or something related to the brake and some inspections.
I don't have any for if I do for the trooper though.
I have a question. I'm just my own curiosity. Sergeant, does OPA have to do their 31 CMV inspections a year?
the troopers do that are signed there, but anybody with rank do.
I'm just curious.
Say.
That's pretty much so.
Suits all around.
Mr. Ruth, you would identify yourself for the record and give your side of this.
Justin Ruth. To start with, there's been a lot of back and forth to go with this. Like he's explained that I was going through the appeal process because I do feel as though that termination was very egregious, given the fact that I have no prior incidents or any kind of disciplinary actions. I feel as though this was a retaliation from my lieutenant that I was working under at the time. What his issue was with me at the time, I do not know. But it almost feels like he found something that he thought that he could run with, and then it was pushed up, and then ultimately I never got a formal interview with OPA. Was essentially put on administrative leave with no explanation of why I was even there, and then was hit with the termination. The break issues, again, I never lied about that. No, I did not crawl up under those trucks to do those in the measurements. The reason being is I'm a trooper on the side of the interstate. For my safety, I'm not gonna do it. So we try to typically focus on hot shots. I'm sure all of you are familiar with those. I was forced to go through the level 1 training to begin with. That was not something I asked for. My whole graduating class in the academy was made to go through that training. We didn't have an option in that, where other troopers were given the option to stop at level 3 where they don't have to do those measurements. I wasn't given that option. I tried to give some documents during my initial appeal that kind of, they used that as more leverage, so to speak. After I went through the training to begin with, during my initial inspections to get the certification done, was actually with a seasoned trooper doing an inspection with him, under him, and was actually beginning to crawl under the truck to measure the brakes, and was told, we don't do that. There had been no other issues with me not doing measurements, again, because tractor trailers on the side of the interstate crawling up under them. It's impossible. Was not given the equipment. And then again, that was thrown in my face that it was ultimately my problem, that I didn't ask for the chalk blocks to be able to do the job correctly. Then they wanted to say that the way I was checking the tires going around the vehicle was not appropriate, which I was using a mallet that I provided for myself to actually hit the tires to predetermine if I could tell whether or not it was low or not. And then if I could tell it was, then I would check on it a little further than that. Their argument was that that was not a proper piece of equipment that was not supplied by the agency to be able to do that. I wasn't given anything else to do that. That was the only way I had to do that. So there's just a lot of things that I tried to explain, again, with no formal interview with OPA. I didn't have that opportunity, nor was I granted any kind of opportunity to explain what happened and why it happened. The reason being, I say that there was a deadline in the memo that I was asked to write was because our captain had sent out an email saying that all of the inspections for the year needed to be completed by the end of October. That was going to be my last shift for the month. I was short. There was no possible way for me to target hot shots before my shift was over. I would have either had to work over or come in another day, which that would have been hard to do. So I really was left with no other option other than doing that, and resulting back to the way I was told to begin with, that we're not going to measure brakes on the side of the interstate with tractor trailers. So I ultimately made a terrible decision to not measure them and document that.
What's I'm sorry. I'm curious, what's the fallout for a trooper if they don't get so many of these inspections done in a year's time or months or what? I mean, what is the fallout from that? I mean,
from what I understand, they will force you to go back through the training again.
So you'll lose your level one, you go from a level 1 to a level 3, but what is it after, Captain Turner sent that email out and, say you was tied up in court or trial or tied up. I mean, say you were tied up with that FMLA, you'd had a child or something and you didn't, I mean, what is it internally, the fallout?
I'm not,
Besides the state losing millions of dollars of federal transportation money and all that good stuff.
I can't answer that honestly.
During my tenure, it was, well, they tell you October because they know a lot of people are going to carry over to November. So they don't tell you to November because everybody will carry over to December. So they're just trying to
Squeeze it in.
They're just telling you, want by this date because they know that in the next 3 months.
And I know for everybody, and I know trucking safety is very important. I mean, I'm a CDL holder, health card holder myself, and yeah, I know it's important, but
It is, and Ms. Reed, when did you come on the highway patrol?
2022, July, I believe.
2022. Did you have any prior law enforcement?
Yes, sir.
Where did you work prior to that?
When I first came to Tennessee from Georgia, I was a corporal with the South Pittsburgh Police Department.
Obviously have admirations about staying in law enforcement.
At this point, I'm not sure.
Not sure.
I feel as though I was very much wronged through this whole process. And that,
Well, I'm not necessarily saying with the highway patrol.
to be honest
Just
with you,
law
sir,
enforcement in general.
I'm not 100% sure.
I mean, the inspections are important. They do have huge results. We did falsify inspections. The companies that get a good inspection, as you already know, their insurance rates go down. It had a tremendous effect on the companies themselves. So I don't want to take anything away from falsifying inspections for whatever reason. I was prior law enforcement, prior highway patrol too. I came in 2002. And I don't remember the year that they merged the two together, but I was I guess you could say a combative CMV inspection, level 3 as myself. I'm gonna make a motion. Again, I don't want to take away from the seriousness of falsifying the records, but I understand the circumstances of why.
well, I will add to this because we've had cases here recently where folks have, I guess, had falsified contacts.
Go stops.
Go stops, yeah, there's where we're at, go stops. I mean, as far as this inspection sheet on a level 3, is that, I mean, is that a check mark on a form? Right, just check mark, but I mean, there was nobody was lost any citations, brought to court, there was no monetary loss on valid stop, but no victim monetary loss. There is what I'm asking. Okay.
When I finish what I was saying, I don't know where to go, but I'll make a motion for no action.
We have a second. I have a question while we wait to see if there's a second. So what county were you working in?
Marion,
Is there any scales around there? Or,
those are the only ones they copy.
I mean, how far away is that?
Well, you got Monteagle Mountains, were you at the brake check?
Yes, sir.
So that's the baby ground. So every commercial motor vehicle comes to the top of the mountain. They have to go into the brake check, stop, and that's where they see it. And rightly so. I mean, it's a very dangerous decline.
Is that where you were?
Yes, sir.
That's not on the interstate though. That's off to the side of the interstate.
It technically it is. It's just like an exit that they have to go in.
I mean, but it's not in the main travel lanes of the interstate. So when you say you're on the side of the interstate, you don't want to go with an 18-wheeler to check the brakes. You weren't on the interstate. You were in a truck inspection.
No, sir. I was directly on the shoulder of the interstate because the trucks that I stopped, they bypass that.
Okay.
So they're still in the lane of traffic.
Is that what you call a hot shot?
No, sir. A hot shot is basically
It's
a doodle pulling a long trailer.
Well, you said earlier, everybody knows what a hot shot is.
And director, I'm not traveled through that brake check thousands of times. it can be a very congested and dangerous area, even though it is a complete pull-off. I have seen troopers nearly get picked off by trucks coming in. Every semi truck on I-24 comes in there, especially at night. It's very dangerous, and it is a danger point. It's not like you were sitting on the emergency lane. I think that's what you were thinking, but that break point check is a dangerous spot.
Well, and that's a pretty harrowing stretch of interstate anyway, especially, going up the mountain and coming down it. But, and you mentioned one other thing in your testimony that if you didn't get it done on this particular day, you might have to come in another day. And as if that was, it would be impossible for you to have come in, or you just don't want to come in, because it seems like, and I don't know, I've never been a trooper, I don't understand, but maybe on that day that you came in, you could have gone to a scales and done all of your inspections there. I mean, I don't know, but
Yeah, and this is Commissioner Green, and I don't know how the vote's gonna go or where it's gonna end up. But I will say this, if you do stay in law enforcement, you don't have the option to pick and choose what rules or obligations you have. You say it's dangerous to check brakes going down that hill. I'm fairly familiar with that mountain myself. But if brakes fail, that creates a hazard for other traffic on that roadway, and you know that. The same thing, if you go into law enforcement, a municipal or county agency, you can't say, well, this is too dangerous for me to do. I can't go on this call, or I can't go serve this warrant because I feel like it's too dangerous for me. So you need to make a decision. If you do go stay in law enforcement, you can't pick and choose what calls or what obligations you have when you're assigned something. You understand that?
Correct, sir. Yeah.
Commissioner Wright again. Ms. Reed, how many total years do you have in law enforcement?
Over 10, sir.
Over 10. Did you have any prior any serious disciplinary actions with your previous departments?
No, sir.
Was you in Class A uniforms, or was you in your utility uniform?
Class A, sir.
Would they allow you to come in your utility uniform?
No, sir.
If there had been a day that you said, hey, Sergeant Lieutenant, I want to come in and get on my truck inspections, not that day, can I wear my utility uniform? You feel like you'd probably been denied that?
Yes, sir.
Do so?
Yeah, because I had a day set aside, or actually a full week set aside to actually go to the scales and do inspections, and that was one of the big reasons why I had so many to begin with at that time. But I still needed, I think it was those 5 were what I needed to have for the year.
Again, I'd say I've already got the motion on the floor, but
Over 10 years.
over 10 years of law enforcement, and we're getting down to where you crawl under a semi.
Well, and also, I want to put something else in perspective, and nothing against our own PA. They do a great job, and safety has policies that go on. We all know that here. So I want that known that these guys are doing their job. I don't agree with some of the safety's doings, and I don't think some of the top brass agrees with it either. It's just what's there. Your lieutenant, when he come on to Department of Safety, where was his first assignment? Do you know?
I believe he was.
I can tell you, the Cobb County Scales.
Yes.
And that's what he went through. So he's been a truck checker his entire career, and he's now a lieutenant of what? Patrol.
Yes.
For Marion.
Squad 2 Bledsoe now.
That's right. I just wanted some folks here to have an understanding that his upper supervisor, he didn't come on to work the road. He was come out of the highway patrol after he got out of the Navy, and he went straight to the scales. And I just want y'all to understand that.
Went straight to scale as a CMB officer.
That is correct.
And then got merged with stroke of a pen to highway patrol.
That is correct.
I'll second the motion.
we have a motion for no action, correct? By Commissioner Wright, Commissioner Beverly, with a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the votes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. This is the council document. We just want to see.
You drove up here. Been running around, trying to serve warrants this morning.
Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security, Dylan K. Sandlin. Mr. Sandlin was submitted for decertification based on his termination. Mr. Carter,
Yes, sir.
identify yourself again for the record.
Yes, sir. Sergeant Toby Carter, Tennessee Highway Patrol, Department of Safety and Homeland Security, Office of Professional Accountability Investigator. We're here today due to an incident that occurred with Mr. Sandlin while he was off duty. In December of 2024, Mr. Sandlin had text communications with a Mr. Bowles regarding him and a Mr. Hicks coming to Mr. Bowles' house to have some type of issues or knowing Mr. Bowles' wife. Mr. Bowles informed Mr. Sandlin if that him or Mr. Hicks came over there to the residence for his wife, that he would come out shooting. So fast forward, December 17th, Mr. Bowles is sitting at his house and hears a noise outside when he goes to downstairs. Mr. Hicks is there when he opens the door. There is an altercation between Mr. Hicks and Mr. Bowles. After that altercation happens, Mr. Hicks leaves and gets into a side-by-side driven by Mr. Sandlin, and they leave the property. Deputies with the Jackson County Sheriff's Department goes and talks to Mr. Bowles and finds out what happened. It turns out that Mr. Hicks was there to see Mr. Bowles' wife. Unknown the nature of their relationship, I don't know. After the deputies talk to Mr. Bowles, they go to try and find Mr. Hicks. They go to Mr. Hicks's house. Through the Ring camera, it's communicated that Mr. Hicks is at Mr. Sandlin's house. So the deputies and the Chief Deputy Shepherd, then go to Mr. Sandlin's house to talk to Mr. Hicks. Mr. Hicks is asked to come to the front porch. He goes outside of the front porch. While they're talking to Mr. Hicks, Mr. Sandlin comes out and inserts himself into their investigation several times. At one point being told if he does not go back inside, he will be arrested for interfering with their investigation by the Chief Deputy. When questioned by his Lieutenant Dwayne Jennings, about the incident, Mr. Sandlin stated he did not know that there was an issue with Mr. Bowles and them seeing Mr. Bowles' wife. Turns out Mr. Bowles' wife was at Mr. Sandlin's residence due to, if I'm understanding accurately, Mrs. Sandlin going to pick up Mrs. Bowles and bringing them to their residence. Mr. Sandlin told the lieutenant that he was not aware that Mr. Bowles had an issue, but due to the text message communication, he was well aware that there was an issue for whatever reason between Mr. Bowles and Mr. Hicks and Mr. Sandlin, and not to come over there. Mr. Sandlin drove Mr. Hicks over to Mr. Bowles' residence in his unregistered side-by-side that Mr. Sandlin said he knew was unregistered and was for farm use. Clearly driving on a public roadway going to someone else's house is not for farm use. Mr. Sandlin lied to his lieutenant stating that he did not know that there was an issue and that he was not welcome, which was proven because the lieutenant had the text messages. And he was terminated for failing to notify his supervisor of the law enforcement encounter. Operating an off-road vehicle on a public roadway knowing it was not registered for that purpose. For driving a person to another man's house that had an issue and knowing that there was an issue, and then being untruthful to his lieutenant, knowing that he was going over there and lied and said he didn't know that they were going to have an issue, which he said. The man said, "If you come over here, I'm going to come out shooting." I wouldn't go over there. It's just me.
Questions for OPA?
What county was this?
Jackson County.
It's the same guy we just.
Deputy that was just here previously.
Well, we should have kept him here.
Yeah, that would have been to me. What tangled webs are moving?
It's a scheduling thing, isn't it?
Wow.
He'll be coming to a full commission.
Yeah, well, Sorry, that was my only question. I apologize.
Yes, sir.
Sergeant Carter, how long had Mr. Sandlin been with the department?
One second, sir. He was hired February 25th of 2024. Oh, excuse me, hold on. Apologize, it's the wrong one. Nope, same day, they were classmates, February 25th, 2024. So this happened approximately 6 or 7 months later, 8 months later.
So he was still considered on probation at the time?
Yes, sir, he was a probationary employee and not entitled to any appeal rights.
And he himself, the trooper in question, was intoxicated when dealing with law enforcement.
Yes, that was the information given from the deputies and the chief deputy to Lieutenant Jennings, who conducted the investigation on OPA's behalf.
Yes. What can you, Officer Beverly, or Commissioner Beverly, what can you talk about the issue that happened at the swimming holes?
Well, according to the deputies, there was an issue at a swimming hole where Trooper Sandlin was there off duty, also allegedly intoxicated, and he was waving his badge around saying he was going to arrest people. When questioned about it, he said that he was not aware of a video being, one, but if it did happen, it was all in jest. It wasn't actual serious. Now, to my understanding, that the department was not aware of that incident until this incident came.
Any date range and when that happened? Estimate, or I can ask him.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the representative of the Tennessee Highway Patrol?
What other, any body cam or dash cam footage?
Not that I'm aware of. Let me see. We didn't conduct this. This was the field investigation. I apologize, sir. I would have to take the time to read throughout to see if the lieutenant indicated there was body camera footage.
I didn't see any, I just didn't know if maybe.
I would say since he didn't specifically mention it, there probably is not.
All right, sir, if you would just have a seat, we may need to call you back up. Mr. Sandlin, if you would identify yourself for the record, please.
I'm Dylan Sandlin.
Go ahead and give us your side.
Well, for the record, Sergeant Carter stated that I was terminated for this reason. I do not have a copy of my termination letter with me. I was not given a reason for termination other than probation. My current employer, Sheriff Steve Hopper, reviewed my termination letter, and all it stated was that I was terminated due to a probationary clause.
What agency are you working for now?
Smith County Sheriff's Office, sir.
Okay.
December 17th, my wife and I went and had dinner for her birthday, and she had a margarita, and I drove us home. Well, a childhood friend of mine, Mr. Dylan Hicks, that Sergeant Carter brought up, was going through some stuff. He was dating a woman that was middle of a divorce, Mrs. Bowles and Mr. Bowles were already filed for divorce in the middle of it. He was very upset because Mr. Bowles and Miss Bowles had to have a conversation regarding agreements and custodial issues with their children. So she had agreed to meet Mr. Bowles at their previous residence, which was still legally her residence. My childhood friend was very upset and distraught and pretty worrisome. And so he called me and asked if I was at home. And then I subsequently told him, yes, sir, I'm at home. Whenever he arrived at my residence, he was very intoxicated and was very emotional regarding the situation. And so I told him I live from where I live, it's a county road, unmarked. My farm that I own is approximately 1 mile from my house. Well, I told him, I said, hop in the side by side, we'll go take a ride on the farm, talk and clear your head. So I drove around the road to the farm. We hung out, multiple hours had passed, and I had sent Mr. Bowles a couple text messages talking about, before this entanglement between you three, we were all friends, all been very good friends. There's no need in fighting. Well, that's whenever Mr. Bowles did make those statements. However, multiple hours had passed, and while myself and Mr. Hicks were on my farm in the side by side, Mr. Hicks receives a phone call from his girlfriend, the one that's in the middle of a divorce with Mr. Bowles, saying that she needed a ride for him to come pick her up. And I told him, I said, I was not, as a state trooper at the time, I'm not going to let somebody leave my residence intoxicated. I was not intoxicated and not drinking a drop. So I provided Mr. Hicks a sober ride to pick her back up after she asked for the ride. I pulled in the driveway. We did take my side by side. It was all county roads. If you're all familiar with Jackson County, we all do. I mean, I will admit I did operate a unregistered and uninsured vehicle on a county roadway. I did do that. Well, I pull in the driveway. Mr. Hicks gets out, goes inside the residence. It was very brief. About a minute and a half later, he comes running back out of the house with his face bloody. I had no idea what had occurred. It was very unbeknownst to me until he gets in the vehicle. He ended up having to get stitches. He was bloody all over. I provide him a ride back to my house where I have, through military and law enforcement, I've received a little medical training. I was going to clean him up, see if he needed stitches. Ms. Bowles had also contacted, I do not recall, it was either Mr. Hicks or my wife, asking for a ride after this altercation had occurred because it scared her and she took off walking down the road. But I did not know that at the time, or I would have stayed and continued to give her the ride that we went over there to give her. By the way, I was not untruthful to my lieutenant. My lieutenant asked me specifically if I knew that Mr. Bowles would be there. And I said, no, I did not. His truck was not visible in the driveway. And so his wife had also, his middle of a divorce wife, they're now divorced. It was his estranged wife at the time, had called and asked for a ride. Never in 1,000 lifetimes would I believe she would call her boyfriend and ask him for a ride if Mr. Bowles would have still been present at the residence. So I had no reason to believe he was still there. Once we get back to my house, my wife goes and gets Mrs. Bowles, brings her there. I'm cleaning Mr. Hicks up with some gauze and some alcohol swabs. Well, I realized the situation. We sat down. I was kind of like, holy crap, I've never even had any type of ticket. I've never had any issues. I've been military and law enforcement almost my entire adult life. I asked him, I said, you want a beer? And he said, yeah. So I go to my refrigerator, I get him a beer and I get me a beer and I sit down in my recliner and I drink it. Well, finish it and I go and I get myself another one. Well, this is only my second alcoholic beverage of the day. Mr. Hicks gets a notification on his Ring doorbell camera. And it was the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. It was Chief Deputy Roy Shepard that was here earlier, as well as a rookie deputy that graduated Toledo this past year to my knowledge. And he explained to them where he was at. He was at my house and that they were, could come speak to him. So they arrived at my residence probably 25 to 30 minutes. That's an estimate later. And they asked Mr. Hicks outside. I remained sitting inside, was absolutely none of my business. So, but I am listening to what they're telling him on the Ring doorbell camera. The deputy that came with, at the time, Chief Deputy Roy Shepard, was a friend to Mr. Bowles. So I did not go outside onto the porch. I poked my head out the door, as I've known Mr. Shepard for a long time, and said, hey, Roy, can I talk to you for a moment? And he said, yes, sir. He stepped into my residence. And I was telling him, I was like, hey, I'm pretty much your only witness to this. He was legally invited to this residence, and he was assaulted because they read him Miranda and were telling him he was trespassing, everything else. If he was invited to a residence, he's not trespassing. And I was trying to tell Chief Deputy Shepard that and assist in any way I could. Whenever he told me that it was trespassing, and I told him I was like, Roy, you know that that's not true. He began to get irate with me and not accuse me. He began to get irate and threatened to take me to jail for public intoxication, even though I had not even finished a second Bush Light in the comfort of my own living room. At that point, he stepped outside back onto the front porch. I left my door open but kept the screen door shut, and I stood there until they left. What was concluded, there was no criminal charges that stemmed from this whatsoever at all. Nothing came from it in the slightest. And then to comment on the swimming hole situation, apparently when my Lieutenant Jennings, spoke to Chief Deputy Shepherd, who I rode side by sides with on trails during the past summer, apparently he stated that I had done that. Being in a friend group where there's not many cops, you're known as the cop. So people, joke around all the time, hey, arrest him, give him a ticket. So I have never, and since I've had this career, I've been certified since 2020, and I started in 2019. I've never acted in law enforcement in any official capacity while off duty. If that, I don't recall that specific event occurring. If it did occur, it was nothing more than a simple joke amongst my friends. Hope I've been able to give a proper explanation.
Mr. Beverly, you're in Smith County now?
Yes, sir, I am.
How long you been there?
I've been back there since approximately 4 or 5 days after my termination from the Highway Patrol.
You said back there. Did you start there?
Yes, sir. I left, so I worked at Smith County a couple different times. I worked there from 2021 to 22. After my father died, I took a year hiatus from law enforcement. Went back in 2023, and then I left Smith County to go to the Highway Patrol.
Can we agree probably bringing a drunk person into a domestic situation is probably not a good idea?
Sir, I do, but also at the same time, I'm not going to allow somebody I know is very, very intoxicated to leave my residence and operate a motor vehicle.
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is I could see some alternatives there to maybe keep him put, but get her out of the situation and
Yes, sir.
solve all things around. But for me, this sounds like more of a error in judgment and, and introducing him that you paid for with your career with the Highway Patrol. But
Yes, sir.
I don't know if this necessarily rises to the level of getting him out of law enforcement or career.
I was, may I use do what might be a chattism?
Absolutely, there's no right of, I wanted to expect you to.
One of the things is in the face of this entire issue comes from someone that we just had to question character up here against the judge's letter. So that was pretty troubling as well. Hold on 1 second. So that led me to some troubling there, but not to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And it's, you witnessed an assault, you were a highway patrolman. Like, was there ever any thought like, man, I probably ought to call 911? There's just been an assault.
Well,
I think it goes back to the same thing Commissioner Beverly was saying, that, there was some poor judgment that was exercised at the house. By your own admission, and the things that you testified to, like that's just very poor judgment. But you try to do something nice for somebody and then made some bad judgment decisions thereafter, including after the assault, which, it's not a reasonable thing. Law enforcement's going to be called potentially in a situation like that. And then y'all go back and start drinking. It's just bad decision making. But I think Commissioner Beverly made a great point, but I just wanted to.
Channel here. Sure.
Commissioner Wright, I assume your sheriff knows where you are today?
Yes, sir, absolutely. My sheriff is present, sir.
Oh, is he? Okay, that was gonna be my next question was I cannot see him in that line. All I was saying was OPA. I thought, well, I'm speaking a lot for you if they didn't show up on your behalf today. I don't know if that's an official motion or not, but
I just want to give other people a chance to speak, but yeah, I'll make a motion to take no action, and hopefully you learn from this and try to use a little bit better judgment.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Wright, second.
We have a motion for no action and a second. Any further discussion? Before we take the vote, if it goes in your favor, you need to use better judgment in the future.
Yes, sir.
So, all right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries. Good luck.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We have one other on the agenda, and since Kevin is, thanks for coming out, Sheriff. Kevin, you had mentioned earlier about Chad Garland. We couldn't take that one up with all of the other Yes, sir. Default certification, sorry, it's.
Kevin Creek, post investigator, he reached out to me this morning, said there was a family issue, and just left it at that. He was not gonna be present today. He left it up to the commission's design.
Did he ask for it to be reset?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright, I'm gonna make a motion on this one too, reset it to the next informal, and this is one that apparently just failed the FTO program as well, so. There's a few of those, so definitely we want to give him an opportunity.
So, reset to July.
Correct. Next informal.
We have a motion on the table to reset to July.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries. Any other business for the good of the order? I will tell all the commissioners here, I'm going to be sending out an email of some red line rules by the order review. Go ahead.
Secret.
Carl.
Oh.
Yeah.
Call secret.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I'm telling you, my blood sugar must be low.
You gotta do a little water, but you do.
Yes. We only thought. All right, Carl Seagroves, Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security was submitted for decertification based on his termination. And sorry, I almost caused you to drive down here and adjourn the meeting. So go ahead.
No, it's all good. Lieutenant Harold Stewart, OPA. And Mr. Seagroves was arrested back in May of 2021 for criminal trespassing. After he arrived at his estranged wife's residence and was knocking on the door, trying to gain entry under false pretenses. He was charged with 1 count of criminal trespass, 1 count of stalking in Rutherford County, and she filed an order of protection. Mr. Seagroves resigned from the department in December of 2021. And so we were not able to interview him since he was out on FMLA, I believe, at the time. And so he resigned when I submitted the documentation for recommendation. The recommendation came back for termination based on the oppression.
Yeah, he was arrested, this is Commissioner Woolworth, he was arrested on aggravated criminal trespass and 1 count of stalking.
I believe it was just criminal trespass. No, it was aggravated criminal trespass and I believe stalking.
And have those charges been resolved?
I don't know.
It's not on your iPad.
I was looking at the Rutherford website to see if it was shown, but we can ask him.
Yeah, I'm also looking at it, can't find it, but he advises that the charge has been disposed of.
Being expunged, and that's
So, it most likely.
Anybody got questions for him or could we bring him up?
You said y'all went to look for him and you wasn't able to talk to him because he was on FMLA?
Yes, sir, I believe he was on FMLA.
Do you know what the FMLA was for?
Yes, sir. So when I reviewed the body cam footage, Mr. Seagrove said, give me 1 second. It had to do with a vision issue, loss of eyesight.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Seagroves. So you would, for the record, state your name and tell us your side.
Carl Seagroves. Of course, it's a pleasure to be here, sitting here listening all this day. Y'all go through a lot. So for you that don't know me, I just want to hit my highlights. I am an Air Force veteran, honorably discharged. Left the Air Force in '93, took a small job at a small department, Tracy City. And Then later on went to Mont Eagle, but in 1997, I got the certification next door here. So total dispatch time and all was 28 years. And I can say it was a spotless record up till I had to start going through a divorce. In 2020, had some marital issues, found out my wife had been cheating on me. And that's what led to going to the residence that the lieutenant said. But there's a lot that went through that because just to cover my career, Tracy City, Assistant Chief Police, Mont Eagle City, a patrolman. Then I finally decided, hey, I want to be a trooper because that's where the stuff happened. You know, that's where you put the big hat on. So in 2005, I became a trooper. During that time, I had a lot of jobs. I helped with the governor's DC security when they're on location a little bit. I was a level 1 certified trooper, hazmat, cargo, motor coach. I actually was doing a job with the highway patrol called New Entrant, which was I would audit DOT companies. I was only one of 8 troopers in the state of Tennessee that did that job at that time. So getting back to that, I had to take time off work in 2020, initially for FMLA that my mom and dad both passed away within a month and a half each other. So that being said, I took time off for that, wound up having a vision issue. My last day of 10/8 was 20. I was working the BLM protest or whatever they call it in Nashville. Started having some vision issues in my left eye. Could not work that weekend, so I went to a doctor and they diagnosed me with a eye stroke, which was, I was having blurriness in the left eye. So I knew I couldn't work, so I took time off, went on my FMA, burned all my time. And that was, you know, like I said, the end of 20. Well, found out at the same time my wife was cheating on me. And we were trying to work it out, but we had both decided to sell our big house because we couldn't take care of it anymore. And I offered to help buy another house because she was telling me that, hey, we were going to be together. So I give over $30,000 after liquidating assets to buy the house that I went to that night. The story for that night was I moved into an apartment because we both said, hey, I need to separate. The apartment that I was at was about 2 miles from my old location. Anybody could have found me. Anybody could come. I mean, I even updated my new address with Department of Safety and TCRS, the whole 9 yards. So when I moved in that apartment in May, at that time, my daughter was 9 years old. And I usually tell her good night and no answer. Then I called my ex-wife, no answer, text her, no answer. So I had a friend drive me out there. And the reason they drive me out there, my vision, well, that was in May of 21. My vision totally left me in February of 21. I am considered legally blind. So in May of 21, by not getting hold of my daughter, worried about her, because in the back of your mind, you kind of know your wife's there with her boyfriend, and I don't know this guy, so he's in the house probably with my daughter. But I went out there to check on my wife or my daughter. I knocked on the door, and yeah, I did say I had injured myself. I'd like to talk to her, but I did fall that day, and she didn't know I hurt my arm. I was outside the house, never kicked the door, ring cam video. If it had been available to them, it probably wasn't, because even the deputy at Rutherford County didn't look at it. I didn't say one cuss word. I didn't curse. I said, how's my daughter? Then I said something to the effect of, what's he doing in there? And then we talked. I was on the phone. So I said, I stepped off the porch. I called Rutherford County Sheriff's Department. She called Rutherford County Sheriff's Department. At the same time, I told the deputies, hey, I'm a trooper. I'm on medical leave. I'll probably be out processing. I have no weapon on me. When you pull up, my hands will be out. It was cool that night. I had a light jacket on. I said, my hands for your officer's safety, will be clear. They rolled up. They never looked at the ring cam video. They went in there and she said those famous exchanged ex-wife words, which there was never any problem. There was no prior domestic, no drugs, no alcohol, no nothing. She said, I'm in fear of my life. Well, she's standing there with her boyfriend, which is a 6 foot tall ex-Marine. So the 30-year-old female deputy says, you're under arrest for domestic assault. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I didn't assault nobody. Of course, what do? You put your hands behind your back and you go to jail. The magistrate in the complaint said that's not domestic assault. If the man wanted to get in the house, he could have kicked the door in due to his law enforcement training of 28 years. So they had to charge me with something. It was criminal trespassing. Now, getting to that point, my divorce lawyer is sitting over there. He's not representing me here, but if y'all need clarifications for the way the ex-wife lied and did everything, I did go to court. I was placed in the cup, but I do have full expungement paperwork for everything that happened. So, and I don't contact my wife. We're still fighting over my daughter. Mr. Looper is my lawyer. So if you have any questions, and I'm only here today just to ask, I earned that number. And I did nothing to lose it. But that's pretty much all I got to say.
Mr. Seagroves, it's obvious that you will never be back in full-time law enforcement, is that right?
No.
So you're dependent on somebody to drive you everywhere now?
Yes.
What are you doing? Are you just completely?
I'm fully retired medical. I do get a disability from the state. And you know, nobody came and talked to me. They could have found me. I'm easy. You know, I did have a lieutenant come to my apartment. He got my stuff and he looked at it on his feet, would not look me in the eye. He said, Carl, we wanted to call and check on you, but we were told not to.
So your status was safety, are you terminated or did you medically retire?
Well, after talking with Kevin, it was resigned in lieu of being fired. And that's the only reason I'm here today. What am I being fired for? I mean, 28 years spotless record, did everything I was supposed to do just because of an ex-wife. And if you got any questions about that, that man over there has heard everything.
Commissioner Beverly, I see where the warrant was denied and you were in custody, I take it, sitting in booking at the SO when.
Yes, sir.
And then you were charged with ag criminal trespassing, since been expunged.
And I have the paper right here, sir.
I want to make a motion to take no action.
Commissioner Wright said.
We have a motion for no action and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. I believe that is the last item on the agenda. Sorry for the ending the meeting early. I just wanted to tell our commissioners, since it is a public meeting, and we have several here today, I'm going to send out an email this afternoon. As soon as I get back over next door, it'll have the red line rules. What you're not voting on the rules package tomorrow. What you will be doing is voting to send those to a formal rulemaking hearing. So I just wanted to clarify that, but that's what you're going to get on sale. So y'all can start reviewing this. Without any objection, meeting is adjourned.
You got an application packet? Sure.